We are here on a review hearing. We're conducting this through Zoom. We're live streaming, and Ms. Taylor's making our record this morning. Okay, we'll take announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Abigail Lawrence is my permanency specialist. We're present ready.
Jay Michelson on behalf of Luz Medellin. She's here and we're ready.
Jeff Hill on behalf of Lorenzo Hernandez, Judge. I don't know that I can announce ready, but I'm here. I haven't had any contact with Mr. Hernandez. I did reach out to him by email to the email address I was provided by St. Francis. I do have an out-of-country phone number. I believe it's Mexico, although I'm not sure. It's a +52 country code. I didn't try calling that, but I did reach out to him by email and never heard back. So.
Okay.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of Aurelian.
All right, then, Ms. Lawrence, if you want to give us an update on how things are going.
So the day that we filed the court report, we had received results from Luz's last hair follicle, and it was positive for cocaine. Aurelio had been reunified with mom since December 29th of 23. So getting that positive hair follicle, we immediately staffed it with my supervisor and director. And based on the results, the conclusion was there was an immediate safety concern for the child. And so he was removed from her home on the 4th of April. He's now placed in a foster home in Amarillo.
Okay. All right, so what do we want mom to do at this point? Another OSAR?
Yes, ma'am. We're asking for another OSAR and 6 sessions of individual counseling to address the relapse.
Okay. Had everything else been going okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, Mr. Michelson, the client have any issues with doing those things?
Well, Your Honor, to complicate matters, once she received notice of the positive hair follicle test, she believed it was an error. So she went to Prime Medical Testing and had an independent hair follicle test done, a 5-panel test. And those results came back negative on April 9th. Or I'm sorry, the lab reported it on April 10th. And Luz provided the document to me last night, so it's too late for a business record exception. So
Is the test, have you sent that to Mr. Trout or to anybody else, Ms. Vaughn?
I just received it last night around 10:30, so I can send it to Mr. Trout, and I'll do that right now. And Mr. Hill, if I have his email. But those are the results that we've just received. So Luz maintains that she was not using drugs, and she found the drug test to be in error.
So what was the date, Ms. Lawrence, what was the date she tested for symptoms?
She went on 3/29, and then we received the results on the 4th.
All right, and then Mr. Michelson, you're saying she went on to Prime when?
According to Prime, the specimen was collected on April 9th, and the lab received it on April 10th, and the lab reported it the same day.
And Mr. Michelson, was that another hair strand, or was that a UA?
It's a hair strand, 1.5 inches of head hair description, 5-panel drug tests, includes amphetamine, methamphetamine, ecstasy, MDA, codeine, morphine, heroin, phencyclidine, marijuana, cocaine.
Okay. Ms. Lawrence, when was the last UA that we had on her?
She also UA'd, and those results that we got on the 4th, the UA was negative.
All right, let me just ask council, I would like for that test obviously to be circulated. And, is there any objection to me seeing the report as well?
I have no objection.
I certainly don't have an objection.
No, I've
I
no
have
objection.
no objection.
All right, all right, let's, as far as review purposes, and Mr. Hill, anything today?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and Ms. Zavala?
Your Honor, the child's doing well in the new foster placement. I was disappointed with the results because I think we were really close to being able to close out the case with mom.
How does this affect your opinion about placement?
Well, I didn't realize there was a second drug test, so that's the first that I'm hearing that. I was concerned with a positive cocaine test and felt like the removal at that time was appropriate. I honestly don't know what to do in face of the conflicting reports. So I'm not sure.
Well, let's do this. Let's get the test circulated and then let me have opportunity to look through it. I'll email all of you what my thoughts are at that point in time, and then if anybody's categorically opposed, then we will reset this for a hearing as quickly as possible. You know, quite frankly, I mean, we've talked about it. I don't see the point in waiting 14 days just so Mr. Michelson can offer that. I mean, but I'll at least give everybody an opportunity to weigh in on at least what my intent is at that point before we do anything.
Your Honor, I've sent the emails to yourself and Stacy and Mr. Hill and Mr. Trout. I'll send it after court to St. Francis. I'll need to look up their emails.
Okay.
I can forward that to him, Mr. Mux.
All right, so when I have an opportunity today, then I'll review it and I'll send everybody an email. For the moment, then, you know, we'll continue the department as temporary managing conservator and continue the child's current placement. Our next scheduled hearing is the final, which is set for June 25th of 2024. Excuse me. That'll be on a 9:00 docket. But if we need to have another hearing fairly soon, then we'll obviously address that this afternoon sometime when we want to send everybody an email.
Yes, ma'am. And
Okay.
Judge, your email is going to address the OSAR and everything. When we get to that, we're not doing anything on that right now, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just follow up on that.
Okay.
So I am going to ask mom to go do a UA today. So she's got plenty of time to do that. So we'll go ahead and get that scheduled.
Your Honor, I don't mean to jump out of place here, but why don't we just do another hair strand as well? And if it's clean, then likely that last test was an outlier. And if it's dirty, then, you know, maybe it's dirty.
And I'm definitely not opposed to that, John.
if it's negative, we'll have the results back quickly. So, okay. All right. Ms. Madeline, I hate to ask you to do that, but I do think it's a good idea. Let's just do it.
No, that's fine. I completely understand.
Okay.
And I'm willing to do whatever, so it doesn't matter.
Okay. All right. Let's just go ahead and do both today and then we'll get those results back. So let's just do this. I won't email until we get the results back.
Okay.
So as soon as you see those, Mr. Trout, if you would be sure to forward those to me.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I'll give a follow-up to today's ruling.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. That's what we'll do then.
Thank you. Ms. Lawrence, if you'll get that paperwork sent over for the hair follicle on UA, so she can get that done today.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Here, Jay, on an
Thank you,
initial
Your Honor.
permanency hearing. We're conducting this through Zoom under a finding of good cause and agreement of the parties. We are live streaming and Ms. Taylor is making our record. Okay, we'll go ahead and take announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Christina Hunter is my permanency specialist. We are present and ready. And Your Honor, I don't know if it's none of us. I'm not seeing Ms. Grant. Is she?
I've not had her come
Okay.
into the meeting room yet.
Okay.
Judge Vince Nowak for Duncan Kirkpatrick, the father. We're both present and we're ready, Judge.
Stacy Sabala on behalf of the kids.
Okay,
And is that mom with dad?
okay. All right then. So they are both present. All right. Ms. Hunter, then what do we have news since the court report was filed?
I apologize, Your Honor. I don't have much of an update to be able to provide. At this moment, there was one other drug screen that was done on Miss Lorna that was not able to be completely fulfilled on the testing side. There was a fatal flaw because the seal was misapplied. So that hair follicle was not able to be tested fully. And that was done on 4/2. So outside of that, I don't have much else to report. From my understanding, they've been doing really well. They've been compliant with all the services. The kids are doing well.
Okay, is she still living in Oklahoma?
Yeah, I believe so.
Ms. Kirkpatrick, are you still in Oklahoma?
Yes, I am.
Okay, all right. So we've been able to get service providers and set everything up there and we're not having any difficulty in that regard.
No.
All right. And obviously the problem with the drug test was not anything that mom did. So
No, ma'am.
okay.
And Judge, on that, we would go ahead and ask if we can do a hair follicle and UAs on both parents today, just to get that stuff cleaned up.
Both of them.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Ms. Kirkpatrick, then are you in town? Or are you in Amarillo today? Or are you in Oklahoma?
No. She asked you.
Are you asking me?
I'm in Oklahoma. Lorna had a surgery scheduled for Friday, and she became sick and didn't get to have the surgery. But I came to help her with. She's having a surgery on her foot, and I'd come over to Oklahoma for a few days to help her with the surgery. She's not going to be able to walk for 6 to 8 weeks, and I was helping with that. And so I'm in Oklahoma with her right at the moment, and I'm about to be headed back to Lubbock.
Okay. So when will you be back to Lubbock?
It's about a 6-hour drive. I'm going to be leaving after this, and then I'll be back.
What, Ms. Kirkpatrick, when's your surgery scheduled?
They rescheduled it for the 26th. So not this Friday, but next Friday.
Okay. All right. Can you both then say by 5 o'clock tomorrow, can you both get to where you need to go as far as testing is concerned?
I think so. Yeah. We can get that
Yeah.
done.
Okay.
Once the tests are ready, Your Honor, I can make sure to reach out to both of them to let them know where they need to go and so they can report timely.
Okay. All right. That would be great. since he's traveling today, we can't, there's no way we can get that accomplished today. So let's just say it by 5 tomorrow. All right. Ms. Kirkpatrick, anything that you need to talk about today?
I don't think so. I mean, everything's been going pretty good.
Okay. All right. Okay. And Mr. Nowak, on behalf of your client, anything today?
Yes, if it pleases the court. Duncan, why don't you give the judge a 30-second to 60-second update on your progress?
Okay, I have been completed IOP, completed everything that they've asked me to complete. I've been living at a sober living that drug tests multiple times a week, and have been doing that flawlessly. Been going to at least 7 AA or NA meetings a week. Working, just kind of doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing.
Thank you, Duncan. And Judge, that's all I have.
Okay, great. Well, I'm very pleased everything's going so well for both of you. So we just want to stick with it and make it a complete success story. All right, Ms. Zavala?
Your Honor, the boys are back with paternal grandfather. I got to visit them in the home. They seem to be doing great. And I was really excited to read about parents' progress.
All right. And I'm assuming visits are going well and there's no problem with any of that.
They seem to be going very well.
Okay, great. Okay, so it's just a question of just let's maintain everything for a while. So, all right then. I'll continue the department as temporary managing conservator, and I will continue their placement. I will make a finding that there would be a continuing danger to send the children home today, but we are certainly on the right path, and it sounds like everything's going really, really well. So I'll see everybody back for our next review hearing on August 13th of 2024. That's a 9 o'clock docket. And just rooting for y'all and glad that it's going so well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Judge, on those drug screens, do we say by 4? You said by 5, but do we mean by 4? I think just test.
Yeah, because of the cutoff times by 4.
I just don't want the parents to be confused and show up at 4:30 in it. Not
No,
it.
that was my bad. Sorry. Don't know what I was thinking. So, okay. All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Good luck with your surgery.
Thank
Another
you.
day set on our
Thank you,
initial
Anna.
permanency hearing. We are conducting this through Zoom. Excuse me. We are also live streaming and Ms. Taylor is making our record. All right, we'll go and take announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Jennifer Campos is my permanency specialist. We're present ready.
Jerry Morales, respondent father, Your Honor. I've only had brief contact with him. Emailed him and called him before this hearing, but I haven't had contact since around the adversary hearing. I'm ready.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of Raxon.
Okay, what do we have news since the court report was filed? Still looking for parents?
Yes, ma'am. I have not had any contact with Mr. Thomas at all. He won't return any phone calls or anything like that. We've done accurate searches on Kimberly. We've sent letters, numerous letters. I actually drove by an address yesterday that was on the accurate search, and that was another place that we had sent a letter to. We just don't have any response whatsoever from her or
Okay.
him.
So I know at one point in time, Mr. Morales' client had said he was going to relinquish. I don't guess that's ever happened.
No, ma'am, it has not. I know that Mr. Morales, or we told him to reach out to Mr. Morales, and he never did after that. So I'm not sure where he stands. From what I understand is that he won't take ownership of this child. I don't know why. That's just what was relayed to me by foster parents. They heard it from somebody else. So, at this point, I don't know what to do with him, if we can't get relinquishment on him. But other than that, Raxon is doing well. He's had some change in medication. He was on Adderall. They had to take him off because it was making him mean and act like he was in the beginning of the case. And so he's just on risperidone and trazodone right now. Risperidone seemed to have worked a lot better, but he's doing way better in school. His attention span is a lot better. He's actually able to speak a little bit. They're not clear, but some words are clear, but overall he's doing good.
He's still in speech therapy, isn't he?
Yes, he's in speech therapy and physical therapy through Northwest. They see him, I believe it's once a week. And so they're working with him on things. And I believe he receives it at school as well. They help him as well.
Okay. And is the foster home interested in adoption?
I have not spoken to them about that. I can speak to them, but that hasn't came up really in our conversations.
Okay. Well, it would seem fairly clear that that's the direction we're headed.
Yes, ma'am.
So, I don't know, maybe Ms. Zavala has had that conversation. I don't know. Okay. Ms. Jones has never requested an attorney in this case. Right, Mr. Morales, anything to report today?
No, Your Honor. After Mr. Thomas acknowledged that he wanted to sign a relinquishment, I was never able to get a hold of him. I've only talked to him like maybe 2 or 3 minutes around the adversary. We lost connection and he wouldn't even answer after that. So I'm assuming what Ms. Campos reported is accurate, that he's just not interested.
Okay. All right, and Ms. Zavala?
Your Honor, Raxon's progress has been pretty dramatic. He's really improved. I may be getting my cases confused, but I had thought a while back, I thought that it was not an adoptive home, but I do need to clarify that because if we did discuss it, it was definitely a while back. So I'll check in with them and get some clarification on that. But I've got no concerns about the home. They're doing great with him, making sure he gets what he needs. And his progress has been pretty dramatic.
Have we ever gotten any kind of report? I mean, I guess I just haven't seen anything recently or I missed it, but there was some concern that he had damaged vocal cords. Did we ever determine, is that correct, or is this something else causing he had this high pitch to his voice?
So he was taken to the ENT doctor in Dallas, Cook's Medical. They said that they didn't see anything, but he does have a follow-up appointment in June to make sure everything is still good to go. But they didn't see anything when whenever they went for their appointment.
So no damage to the vocal cord?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and is the speech therapy seeming to help with his speech? I mean, is he still struggling with it just was described as a very high pitch to his voice?
Speech therapy is helping in some ways. I think that he's just kind of so behind that, he's having a hard time. But it is working. I think it's just going to be a continuous continuous thing for him to get to where he needs to be. If that's ever the case, he was diagnosed with autism. And so I don't think he's going to be nonverbal. I think he's going to be verbal, but it may be, a little delayed in some areas.
Did we ever get any determination on how he got the scoring and did we ever get any information on that?
I'm sorry, you cut out.
I said, did we ever get any information or determination about the scarring that he had?
Never received anything. It was an old burn, from what I understand. But I never received anything like how old or anything like that.
And I do think he had some scarring around the head and ears. I think at that point it looked like a bite. I don't know that we got any further clarification on what it was that caused that.
Okay. All right, well, okay. So,
And Judge, just update on mom's service again. We just filed yesterday a return of service. We had an address down in Houston. It came back unserved. They checked that apartment a couple of times. They said she didn't live there. So that was another attempt we've tried to serve her with, but no avail.
well, let's just go to the next step
Okay.
because I'm going to set this for an early final.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I'll continue the department as temporary manager conservator, continue the child's placement, find that there would be an ongoing danger to return the child home to either parent. And we'll set this for an early final, August 13th of 2024. And that'll be on a 9 o'clock docket. And, just due to complete lack of interest or progress in the case. So, yeah, let's do some looking at foster home and see whether this is a possible adoptive home. And if not, then I think we need to start looking in that direction.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Campos, if you could get us an inability to locate on mom.
I actually sent that to Kim yesterday.
Okay. Okay. I thought she'd been asking for one. I just wasn't sure. So.
Yeah, she did. I just wanted to drive by the address she had emailed me about. So I did drive by there yesterday. I emailed her. I got it notarized and sent it to her yesterday.
Good deal. Thank you.
Okay, so Ms. Katie, whenever you see that come through, you can go ahead and appoint so we can get somebody on this and then we'll proceed to a final. Okay. Thank y'all very much.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Judge.
We are here today set on our final. We're conducting this through Zoom under a finding of good cause and agreement of the parties. We are live streaming and Ms. Taylor is making our record. All right, we will take announcements.
Daniel Trial for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. We're present, ready, Your Honor.
Kenner Rahul for the mother, Julie Justman. I'm present and ready. I've had no contact with my client.
Stacey Grant for Kendrick Ford, Your Honor.
Stacy Zavala for Kinsley.
All right. Mr. Trout, how many witnesses we have today?
I'll have 2, Your Honor.
All right. I'm assuming that's going to be Ms. Herrera and Mr. Forrest.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. You may proceed.
Your Honor, may I address one matter before we proceed?
Certainly.
Kendrick Ford is in custody in the federal corrections system, and I'm unable to get a response to be able to have him present today. And I'm making an oral motion for continuance to give me a little more time to see if I can work through the process to at least have him present by video to attend this hearing.
Just if you will, outline in detail what efforts you've made to try to.
I've made efforts to contact him by phone and mail with no response, and I have filed paperwork. I do not have the form numbers, Your Honor, but I have filed paperwork to request that he be present at the hearing. But as of today, I've got no response from the institution where he is held. And I'm not even sure he's still there anymore, Judge, because I've gotten no response. I don't know if he may have been moved and I'm unaware. This has been my experience with trying to get someone present with the federal facilities, that it's very difficult and lengthy.
Yeah, and it's sort of across the board. It's unusual that we get any cooperation to have him brought in.
Yes,
he's been incarcerated for virtually the entirety of the case, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Your Honor. And I do not expect his release date to be within the time frame that would, I mean, just for transparency with the court, I do not expect his release date to coincide with any opportunity for him to engage in this case in any meaningful way. I just felt that it was my duty to request the continuance to allow him to be here to be present in this final hearing.
And I understand, you know, at the time of removal, he was in Randall County Jail. And this was on, I'm just looking back in my notes. It was for possession of a firearm and possession with intent to distribute methamphetamine.
Correct, Judge.
Um,
And during this case, he was sentenced, and that's when he was moved to the federal penitentiary system.
And Ms. Grant, just you had mentioned that you weren't sure if their inmate locator still says he's in Bastrop, so I'm assuming he's still in the same place he was.
That was my understanding, and Bastrop is the facility that I've been trying to contact, but I don't know if my attempts are just going, I mean, it's just radio silence, Your Honor. I don't know what's happening on the other end of what I'm turning in because I'm getting nothing back.
Yeah. Right. And just to cover our bases on the record, Ms. Katie, you've not received anything from them or any email or any letters or anything like that?
No, Judge, we've received no correspondence.
Okay. All right, then, Ms. Grant, I appreciate the position you're in, but I'm going to go ahead and deny the motion for continuance. And we're going to go ahead and proceed today. I think you've made your best efforts, and I think the case law is fairly clear on that in these situations, you know, if we exercise best efforts to get an inmate present, that's all we can do.
And in that event, Judge, I'm ready to proceed today.
Okay. All right, then, Mr. Truck, you can call your first witness.
Call Rodolfo Flores. How are you familiar with that case?
I was the investigator assigned to the case.
And how did the department become involved in this case?
The department received a report indicating that mom and baby had tested, Kinsley had tested positive for methamphetamine at the time of delivery.
Okay.
Here's what I found.
All right.
That's all right. Were you able to meet with either one of the parents?
Yes, I was. I was able to meet with Julie Dustman, who's the mother, there at the hospital, and I met with Father Kendrick Ford at the Randall. I don't remember if it was the Randall County Jail or the Potter County Jail.
Okay. But father was incarcerated at the time?
Yes, he was.
Okay. Did you discuss with the mother the reason for the department's involvement?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did mother admit or deny any drug use throughout the pregnancy?
Mother did admit that she was using methamphetamine throughout the pregnancy.
Okay. Did mother admit that she had had prior CPS cases?
Yes, she did.
Did she still have custody of any of her other children?
No, she did not. At the time of Kinsley's birth, mom had 7 prior children.
Okay. Were some of those children have been adopted?
Correct.
And does any of her family help with any of those children?
One of her sisters actually had possession of 2 of the children, an 11-year-old and 7-year-old at the time.
Okay. Was mom in stable housing at the time, or was she homeless?
Mom indicated she was homeless.
Did we look into, or let me back up. When did mom state her last use was?
She provided various dates, but I believe the last time she had indicated she had used was about 5 days prior to meeting with me, which would have been 2 or 3 days prior to giving birth.
Okay, so fairly recent use.
Correct.
Did she report any mental health issues or diagnosis that she had?
She did indicate she had borderline personality disorder, I believe.
Okay. Was she on medication for that, or was she compliant with medications on that?
She indicated she was prescribed medicine and stopped taking it like after 3 weeks or something like that.
Okay. Did she mention anything about self-medicating?
She indicated that she wasn't sure if she was using methamphetamine to treat her diagnosis.
Did mom give you the name of Kendrick Ford as the father?
Yes, she did.
When you went to speak with him, what was your conversation like with him?
He seemed to be surprised that mom had tested positive because they had both agreed to stop using prior to him being incarcerated.
Do you know how at the time of the birth? Do you know how long Dad had been in jail?
I do not recall.
Okay. Do you remember what he was in jail for?
He was in jail for possession of methamphetamine with intent to distribute and being a felon in possession of a firearm.
And was that your only meeting with Mr. Ford?
I met with him one more time after we removed to provide him the documentation and paperwork for the removal.
Okay. Did you try to work out anything with mom in order to prevent a removal?
We did try to offer her. I'm sorry. I'm trying to recall what it was that we did. She was homeless at the time, and so we weren't able to consider her for FBSS due to her drug use history, her admission to use, and then Dad didn't have anybody appropriate for us to utilize as well.
Okay. And you'd mentioned earlier that she had a sister who had a couple of the children.
Correct.
Did y'all discuss anything with her as far as whether she'd be able to take the child? Or
there was that discussion, and there was a concern because she had a prior CPS case where she had actually left the two children that she had possession of to be unsupervised around Julie, Ms. Dustman, and one of her sisters after both of those ladies had their children removed.
Gotcha. Okay. Was there any talk at one time of adoption also with a family member?
Yes, the aunt, Miss Nikki, she had indicated that she would like to adopt. Unfortunately, she didn't have the funds for that.
Okay. And so efforts to prevent the removal fell through?
Correct.
And so due to positive drug screens and nowhere to place the child at the time or any services that could be worked with mom, removal was asked for?
Correct.
And do you believe that it was in the best interest of the child to remove at that time?
Yes.
After the removal, well, I'll ask you this. Did the child have any complications, withdrawals from being born positive?
The child was born premature and did have to stay in the neonatal ICU for a little bit of time. I do not remember specific complications for the child. I believe she did need a feeding tube and I think oxygen at one point.
Were parents offered after removal? Were parents offered visitations?
Yes, they were.
Okay. Were you able to set those up? Were y'all able to set those up with parents, or were you not able to get a hold of them?
Soon after the removal, I did meet with mom to sign paperwork, but then after that, I lost contact with mom.
Okay. So after the removal, you did the paperwork, and during the rest of your involvement with this case, you weren't able to contact mom anymore?
That is correct.
And dad was still incarcerated at that time?
Correct.
And at no time during your involvement did dad give you any family members, anybody that could possibly be placement?
He actually did. He had mentioned a grandmother, his mom, but she had recently been released from prison, so she would not have passed the background. And then he mentioned great-grandmother, which is his grandmother, but due to her age, it would not have been appropriate to place the child, a newborn, with her.
And when you say due to her age, she was an elderly lady?
She was an elderly lady, correct.
Okay. And so where was the child placed when you were removed?
Kinsley ended up being placed in foster care.
Okay. By the time your involvement ended, was the child doing well?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Barnhope?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Flores, when was the last time you had contact with Ms. Dustman?
I would not recall that date off the top of my head. Let me look at my notes. I'm sorry. I met with Julie on June 6th, 2023.
And before June 6th of 2023, was Ms. Desmond constant in being in communication with you, or she's more sporadic?
It was sporadic, and I had a lot of difficulty contacting her once she left the hospital.
I'll pass the witness.
Okay, Ms. Brand.
Mr. Flores, once Mr. Ford was moved from Randall County, were you still involved at that time?
I was no longer involved.
And how many times did you visit him at the Randall County Jail, if you recall, sir?
I visited him twice, when I initially met with him and then after the removal.
Okay. And would you say that even though he did not complete a caregiver resource form per se, he did complete the steps necessary to identify some potential family members to you?
Correct.
And you mentioned that the first person he identified was disqualified due to her criminal history and recent release from jail, correct?
Correct.
Or prison. And you said the second caregiver was disqualified due to age. Can you go a little further into, for me, what deficiencies you identified in the home due to her age that made her not a good placement?
Mr. Ford himself indicated that she was too old to take care of his newborn.
Do you recall her age off the top of your head, sir?
I believe it was 78 years old.
Okay. Did you visit her yourself or assess the home?
I did not.
So after he identified her, would you agree with me that he withdrew that suggestion himself based on the age of his family member?
Correct.
Okay, pass the witness, Judge.
All right, and Ms. Savall.
Mr. Flores, the foster home that Kinsley was moved to, is that a home that had previously adopted her older brother?
Yes.
And they have regular contact with some of the other siblings as well, correct?
Correct.
I pass the witness.
Mr. Trout, anything further in this witness?
Nothing further from Mr. Flores, Your Honor.
Your Honor,
Okay.
may I ask one additional question?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Flores, did you identify Kendrick Ford as the father of any of the other children that you became aware of in this case?
He was identified as the father to Mark.
And who has custody of Mark Hale right now?
That would be the foster parent that Kinsley was placed with.
Okay, and so she has sibling contact in the with Markel, and Markel and her have the same father, correct?
Yes.
Pass the witness, Judge.
All right, anybody else have any questions for Mr. Flores?
No, ma'am.
No questions.
All right, then, any objection to Mr. Flores being released?
No objection, Your Honor.
No objection.
Objection.
All right, Mr. Flores, you're free to go on about your day's activities, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Flores.
All right, Mr. Trout, you can call your next witness.
And call Marissa, are you familiar with that case?
I received this case in November of 2023.
Prior caseworker no longer works with the department?
Correct.
What is the department's first steps or St. Francis first steps once you get a case?
We meet with the parents and assess the needs and the reason of removal.
Okay. And were y'all able to meet with the parents?
I'm not sure if the previous worker did, but she did make a family plan based on what the needs were.
Okay. And can you tell me what a family plan is?
A family plan is what we create after we assess the needs to provide services for the parents to demonstrate appropriate parenting, as well as assess what services they need to fix what the removal was.
And you said service plans were generated in this case?
Yes.
Were those service plans made in order of the court?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd ask to admit exhibits number 1 and 2. They are certified copies of the family plans of service that were filed with the court and made in order by this court.
Okay, any objection?
No objection.
No objection.
Your Honor, I would just like to clarify. I've seen those exhibits. I'm having computer trouble and unable to open. Were either signed by the parent?
No.
No, ma'am.
Your Honor, I would object to the plans as incomplete, and the witness's testimony could not validate whether the plans had been reviewed with the parents or signed by the parents, or if the parents had even been visited at the time of the plans.
Mr. Trout, if you want to ask some follow-up questions on some of those issues, I'll go ahead and allow you to do that.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Herrera, is it normal protocol to meet with the parents to go over service plans prior to status hearings?
Yes.
Have you been able to review the file prior to you taking over the case?
Some of it, yes.
Were there efforts made to contact the parents?
Yes.
Did the notes or did your file state whether contact was made and some family plans were gone over?
No. They were mailed out to the dad who's incarcerated and then attempts for the mom.
Okay. So the dad was sent copies of his
Yes.
while he was incarcerated. What kind of attempts were made to contact mom prior to that?
Multiple phone calls. She changes her number from different text now numbers, and then of course reaching out to relatives to see if they've had contact with her, and also visiting her sister's house that she frequents.
Do you know when last contact with mom was?
With me?
With you or the prior worker?
She emailed me on April 4th or 5th. The 5th, she emailed me, and that's the last contact I've had with her.
Okay. Have you ever had any discussions or sent extra copies of the family plans to mom?
I've emailed them to her.
Okay. And is that to a valid email address that you're aware that mom has?
Yes.
Have you received correspondence from mom on those? From that
No.
email address?
Yes, from the email address, yes.
Okay. So to your knowledge, it's a good email address.
Yes.
Okay. Have you had contact with dad?
No, I've attempted. I called down there to Bastrop and I was going to set up a phone call, but then his case manager in the prison changed and they wouldn't give me the new case manager's number, but they gave her my information. So I just send letters to try to get in contact with him in the meantime.
Okay. Have any of your letters been returned to you as undelivered to him?
No.
Okay. So to your knowledge, he is getting your mail. You're just not getting responses.
Correct.
Okay.
Would object to the last question as to the hearsay objection. She wouldn't have any direct knowledge of whether or not any mail was actually delivered to Mr. Ford without witnessing that event.
Sustained. As to what her knowledge about whether he received it.
Yes. But the letters have not been returned to you as undelivered.
Correct.
Okay. And to your knowledge, from your reports and from the ones that have been sent and mailed out, mom and dad have received copies of their service plans.
Yes, to my knowledge.
Objection to that question, Judge. It would be based on hearsay for the father.
As to father, I will sustain it as to father, but not as to mother.
Have you sent a copy of the service plans to father?
Yes, I've mailed him. When I took over the case, I mailed him copies.
Okay. And you're notes are made in the case files in y'all's records at or around the time that the events occurred?
Yes.
And are they made by somebody with personal knowledge?
Yes.
Are you a custodian of record for those records?
Yes.
And you have reviewed the case file?
Yes.
And does the case file also indicate that the prior worker mailed copies of the service plans to dad while he was incarcerated?
Yes.
So based on those notes and based on your personal knowledge of mailing, at least two copies have been mailed to dad?
Yes.
And have they ever been returned as undelivered?
No, not to my knowledge.
Your Honor, I would ask to admit the exhibits. They have been sent. They were made in order of the court as a part of this case.
Your Honor, I have to maintain my objection as to the service plan being delivered to the father based on the fact that this witness has no knowledge of whether that was ever received by the father. And it was never sent with any certified mail or any return receipt that would verify that father has ever received a service plan in this case.
Well, I'm gonna, Ms. Grant, I understand that as far as knowing whether he got it or not, that it would be hearsay for her to testify that, but I'm going to admit exhibits 1 and 2 as they were created, they were filed, they were in order of the court, and whether or not parents received them, read them, or signed them, I think it's certainly relevant, but it doesn't prevent those from being properly admitted. So, okay, exhibits 1 and 2 will be admitted.
Thank you. Ms. Herrera, as to mom, has mom ever reached out to you or from the record that you have in the case file ever reached out to the prior worker in order to set up any services?
Very minimal, but yes, she did complete her psychosocial And then when I took over the case, I had a really hard time getting in touch with her or meeting with her or setting up services. But I know there was a little bit more effort with the previous worker from what I've seen.
Okay. And when you say a little more effort with the previous work, you mean mom contacting her back?
Yeah, they met in person and I never was able to.
Okay. And when did you say your last contact with mom was?
She emailed me April 5th, and was just kind of asking if Kinsley's in a good home and kind of leaning towards relinquishing. And so I sent that over to her attorney.
Okay. And did mom ask as far as trying to get some services, or was she just asking about how Kinsley was doing?
Just the second one, not any services.
Okay. Did you ask her about any services?
When I had reached out to the email, I was asking her to meet with me and go over her services and get them started. And that was her reply to my email.
Okay. What type of services was mom asked to do in this case?
She was asked to do parenting, counseling, psychosocial, make sure she gets stable housing and employment. She was also asked to do drug screens and an OSAR and rational behavior therapy.
Okay. And you said she did a little on the psychosocial?
She did the psychosocial, yes.
Did she follow up with that at all?
No, I was looking at the recommendations and she didn't do those recommendations or the counseling after.
Did she ever set up OSAR?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Rational behavior?
No.
Parenting?
No.
She ever set up any of her individual therapies?
No.
Do you know where mom lives currently?
Well, she might live at her sister's, but her sister denies that. But I've been there and her car's there. But when I asked her sister, she said that she just kind of moves around. And so she doesn't live anywhere specifically.
Okay. But to your knowledge, mom has a reliable vehicle?
Yes.
Do you know whether mom works?
No, I don't know.
Oh. Does mom have, when's her last visitations with the child?
She's never had a visit.
Has she ever, I know you said she called and asked about how the child was doing and was she in a good placement? Did she ask for any type of visitation?
No.
Does your record report that she ever asked the previous worker for visitations?
Yes, she did. And she was told she had to provide a negative drug screen in order to start those visits.
Okay. Did mom ever drug screen for the department?
Yes.
When did she drug screen?
It was in August.
Okay. Do you see, excuse me, Judge, I'd ask to offer exhibit number 3. It's a certified copy of the affidavit of business records for the drug screens that were filed into this case. It was filed and properly served on parties.
No objection.
Affidavit and the attached records, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
Any objection?
No objection.
No objection to 3, Your Honor.
Ms. Zavala, you may have said I didn't hear.
No objection.
Okay. All right, then petitioner's exhibit 3 will be admitted.
Ms. Herrera, you said mom had drug tested in August.
Yes.
Was she negative or positive in August?
She was positive on the hair follicle and she refused the urine analysis.
And is that, to your knowledge, the only time mom has drug screened for us?
Yes.
As far as dad, what have your attempts been to try to reach out to him?
I sent him letters and then I had tried reaching out to Bastrop and I called them. They gave me his case manager's information and I was emailing trying to set up a phone call. And then she was like, oh,
Your Honor, objection to hearsay for the conversation with the case manager.
Well, I didn't hear say what anybody else had said. I heard her describing what her efforts were, unless I misheard.
I think I cut her off, Judge, before it happened, so as to keep it off the record.
So, Ms. Herrera, generally speaking, you can't tell me what somebody else told you.
I attempted to get in touch with his case manager, but I was informed that it changed. So I don't have the new case manager's information.
Did you leave your information for whoever the new case manager was?
Yes.
Have you received any correspondence from the new case manager?
No.
When was that was happened?
Let me look. That was in February.
Okay. Have you tried to reach back out in March?
Let me see, because I feel like I reached out and then she didn't reply. Well, let me check. So my first attempt was the end of January, and then in the middle of February was my second attempt, but I have not attempted in March.
But you have not heard back from any case manager at the prison.
No, I haven't.
Are you aware of what Dad is in prison for?
Yes.
Okay. And what is your understanding he's in prison for?
Objection to hearsay and lack of foundation.
Sustained.
Yes, ma'am. Your Honor, I'd ask to admit exhibits 4 and 5. They're certified copies of the indictment and judgment for Kendrick Ford and his reason for being in federal prison.
Okay, any objection?
No objection?
Objection to 4 and 5, Judge.
No objection.
All right, petitioners, exhibits 4 and 5 will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Herrera, do you have exhibit 4 and 5 in front of you?
Yes.
Can you tell me what exhibit number 4 is?
It is his indictment.
Okay, and by his, you mean Kendrick Ford?
Kendrick, yes.
Okay. And can you tell me what count 1 is?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I clarify that the documents that the witness is reviewing are also part of the CPS record that she has created in this case of which she has knowledge?
Ms. Herrera, is that correct?
I'm not really sure.
Your Honor, these documents were obtained by myself from the federal courthouse and sent out as exhibits. Ms. Herrera received it when everybody else did as a exhibit.
So, Your Honor, I would change my objections. This witness is not the proper witness to lay foundation to the documents, and that the documents have been admitted and should speak for themselves to the truth of the matter.
I'll sustain your objection, but I think she can look at the document and she can read it and say what the document says. So I'll allow Mr. Trapp to proceed.
Thank you. You have that document in front of you, Ms. Herrera?
Yes.
What does it say under count 1?
That he knowingly possessed with intent to distribute a mixture of substance containing a detectable amount of methamphetamine.
Okay. And on page 2, what does count 2 say? Just, and you can just read just the first line right under count
The first line, possession of a firearm.
And then
Okay, hang on. All right, for the record, that's not all it says under there. I want it to be correct.
Possession of a firearm in furtherance of drug trafficking crime.
Thank you.
thank you, ma'am. And then do you have exhibit number 5 in front of you?
Yes.
On page 2 of 5, under imprisonment, does it state how long his term is for him to be imprisoned?
Yes.
And what does that state?
135 months.
Okay. And I don't have my math in front of me. Do you know exactly how long that is?
Your Honor, father would stipulate that 135 months is 11 and 1/4 years.
And he was 11 something. I just can't remember where.
It's 135 weeks.
Yeah. So Ms. Herrera, you heard testimony earlier that Dad was in county jail when this case started.
Yes.
And he is currently incarcerated for 135 months in federal prison.
Yes.
Will Dad be able to, and within the next 2 years from the filing of this case, will Dad be able to provide for this child?
No.
Will he be able to provide a home for this child?
No.
Or any means of living for the child?
No.
Has Dad, I know kind of an odd question, but has Dad reached out to you to try to work any services?
No.
Do you know if there's any services in the federal system that he can work?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Did Dad ever, while he was still in county, I'm assuming no visitations were set up?
No, they weren't.
And that's due to Dad being incarcerated?
Yes.
Is the department today asking the court to terminate the parental rights of the mother, Julie Dustman, as to the child?
Yes.
And are you asking for that based upon failure to work services?
Yes.
Constructive abandonment?
Yes.
The child being born positive for drugs?
Yes.
And are you asking for the attorney rights of the dad, Kendrick Ford, as to the child will be terminated?
Yes.
And is that based upon Dad's current imprisonment and unable to care for the child for a term of longer than 2 years?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would object to the current imprisonment as I don't believe it was pled.
in there, are you talking about, did you say you kind of cut yourself off because it was not pled?
Yes, Judge, I don't see where that was specifically pled in the petition, and so I was under the impression that it would be constructive abandonment.
Well, Mr. Trouton will.
Let me look at it, Judge. I thought it was pled in. Let me see.
And I may be overlooking Mr. Trout, if you can direct me. Sorry, I'm the difficult person today. I apologize. These are a little harder to do when no one will produce your client.
I think that's the definition of your, I mean, that's your job description, isn't it?
Sorry, it is pled in. Stacy, it's under 17.417. It's the very last grounds on the Q grounds.
I've pulled it up, so.
I see that, Judge. I would draw my objection.
Okay. All right. All right.
I apologize.
You're good.
No problem. Okay, Mr. Trout, you may proceed then.
Yes, ma'am. And Ms. Herrera also on constructive abandonment as the dad has not seen the child in the duration of this case.
Yes.
And I understand possibly couldn't work service, but dad has not worked any services either.
Correct.
And do you believe that that is in the best interest of the child?
Yes.
Where is the child still in the original placement?
Yes.
Is that placement long-term goal oriented?
Yes.
Are they willing to adopt?
Yes.
And they do have a biological brother or sibling of Kinsley?
Yes.
And that is their intention is to adopt?
Yes.
How is Kinsley doing now?
She's doing really well. She's hitting all her milestones. She's happy and well bonded.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Naranjo.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Herrera, when was the last time you had contact with Ms. Dustman?
It was April 5th.
Was that the email correspondence you had received from Ms. Dustman?
Yes.
And can you recall what that email generally stated?
It was just saying that she wanted to know if Kinsley was in a good home and kind of leaning towards she wanted to relinquish.
And did you send that email to my office?
Yes.
And did you also see that I had responded to that email asking Ms. Dustman to contact me as well?
Yes.
Since April 5th, have you had any correspondence or any contact with Ms. Dustman?
No.
Throughout the case, how would you describe your contact with her? Was it constant or sporadic?
It was sporadic.
I'll pass the witness.
All right, Ms. Grant.
Ms. Herrera, are you seeking child support today?
Not to my knowledge. No.
And even if child support were ordered today, would you agree that he is incarcerated and unable to pay?
Correct.
And are you aware of a 9/12/23 order in this case for parentage testing for Kinsley?
Yes.
Was that ever completed?
I'm really not sure.
So did you personally make any efforts when you received the case to do the parentage testing with Mr. Ford?
When I received the case, I was told he was in Oklahoma and they were trying to get paternity testing done and then he was moved. So I wasn't sure if they were able to get his draw, but I know that Kinsley went for her draw.
Okay. To your knowledge, as we sit here today, have you seen or received any results of that parental testing?
I have not, no.
Do you have any knowledge of whether Mr. Ford is registered with the paternity registry in this case?
I do not know.
What testimony can you provide today to the court that Mr. Ford is the confirmed father of Kinsley?
I was just told that he was at this time.
Who told you that?
The previous case record.
So you have knowledge of that based on the case record that you're familiar with in this case through your job and employment, correct?
Yes.
And so is there a notation that you saw in the case file, or how did that come to you?
When we discussed it before she left.
So there's nothing in the case file that you can testify to today that confirms that Kendrick Ford is the parent of Kinsley, correct?
That's correct.
Pass the witness, Judge.
All right, Ms. Zavala, and then we'll come back to the parentage issue, but Ms. Zavala, you can go ahead and question the witness.
I have no questions, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Trout. Any further questions of this witness?
Yes, ma'am. Give me 1 second, Your Honor. I thought I had this in there and I forgot to send this out.
Mr. Trout, while you're working on that, can I ask you, are you abandoning your request for child support from the father?
Yeah, we're not asking for any child support.
I just didn't want to go through the questions if it was a non-issue.
And Judge, I just emailed everybody another exhibit. I thought it slipped my mind that it was not in that last batch.
What is the exhibit?
It's the file marked copy of the certificate of paternity registry search that was filed in this case.
While we're waiting for it to come in, I know that I ordered genetic testing, but did we ever get it done?
I don't think we did, Your Honor. I see the order was done on 9/12/23. Let's see. And the last thing I see on it, Your Honor, they were trying to get Mr. Ford tested, but he got moved to federal prison during that time period, and they never were able to get a hold of him to get that done.
Okay. Mr. Ford also, in his statement of procedures, when he filed his application for court-appointed attorney, indicated that, or he checked that he acknowledged that he's the biological father of the child. Now,
And Your Honor, the new Exhibit 6 that I just received shows that the paternity registry search was done on 9/25, which was after the court's order for the parentage testing. So I think the paternity registry search where he is registered would likely override the need for that parental testing based on the new exhibit I've received.
all right, so Mr. Trotter, you're offering Exhibit 5?
Exhibit 6. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right, any objection to the petitioner's Exhibit 6?
No objection?
No objection.
Objection.
All right, the petitioner's Exhibit 6 will be admitted. The return on paternity registry search. All right, let's see.
And Your Honor, just for clarification on the other issue, the last email I received on the paternity testing was that they were going to pass the information that he'd been sent to federal prison in Bastrop to the AG's office so they can arrange to get that draw done. And I've never seen anything since then. And that was in December. So as far as I know, that draw never happened.
So Your Honor, I would make an oral motion to recess this case since we are not up against any hard deadlines so that there can be more time to receive that test back. And I mean, I know he's registered on the paternity registry. That was done after. So, you know, I understand the position that Mr. Trout is in as far as the parentage, but the order does exist and more time should be given to allow Mr. Ford to complete that since he is up for termination today.
And Your Honor, I know Ms. Grant said he did register. The paternity registry actually indicates that nobody registered. So he failed to register on that.
I apologize, Judge. I misread.
Yeah, no, it's a failure to register. There is no one registered with the paternity registry.
Correct.
No one has registered as the father of this child.
So then that would be my oral motion, Judge, for a recess of this final hearing to allow further attempts to complete the ordered genetic testing.
Give me just a minute. I'm looking at this. I'm going to look at a couple things real quick. Okay.
I understand too that I'm not hopeful, as probably Mr. Trout is not hopeful that we would obtain it, but I think in the interest of avoiding complications after the case.
So did Mr. Trout, maybe I misunderstood. Did we get any kind of, do we have any kind of response that he did the testing that they took him or that he submitted to it or anything?
No, ma'am. I let them know on December 13th that he'd been moved to federal prison in Bastrop. Ms. Herrera responded giving them the address and his inmate number from Ms. Chavez with DFPS that does all the paternity testing orders and gets those sent out. Her response was, thank you, I've passed information to the AG's office so they can arrange for his draw to be completed here at the facility he was at. keep me posted if he changes facilities. And that was the last email I have on this or correspondence. And that was on 12/14. So I know they were passing it along to the AG's office. I don't know if that ever got set up or the draw ever happened because I never got any other correspondence on that.
So, Your Honor, another solution would be to recess and plead in all unknown fathers into the matter.
Okay, let me, I'm gonna set up a breakout room and I want to have a bench conference with the attorneys. All right, we'll be back on the record in the Ford case, after a bench conference with the attorneys. We've had this issue come up regarding Mr. Ford's request for genetic testing. The court had already ordered genetic testing, and then he subsequently, through communication with his attorney, did request it. You know, obviously when we've got someone incarcerated, there's always going to be that delay time in getting that information, but he did request it, and he is an alleged father. So we're going to recess, attempt to get that genetic testing complete. It is possible that that they've done it and we just don't have it back, but we don't even know that. And then I think in an abundance of caution, the department's going to amend and plead in unknown father. So Ms. Katie, I need a reset date that's close to the dismissal date, which is July 8th. Hopefully that gives us enough time. Case has not been extended, so we always have that to fall back on if we need more time to try to resolve this issue.
Mr. Hill knows about this. Can I speak to you, Mr. Nowak, and Ms. Zavala? Just kind of update you on something real quick.
Yeah, do we need to wait for,
Sorry, Judge.
do we need to wait for Jeff?
Well, it involves Jeff Klein, and he's the one that told me about it. So I was just gonna let you know where we stand.
And they're all there right now. Everyone's there.
Yeah. I was just gonna update y'all on what's going on. We had a development just then in this other case, during this other case that Mr. Hill notified me on.
Okay, you're talking about in the car case or?
Yes, ma'am. It involves the car case and his client, and it's what he told me.
Okay. So we're expecting that he'll be logging in, right?
Yes, ma'am. They are, well, mom has reached out today and contacted and said she's willing to sign a relinquishment. So everybody is there. My people went to meet them to try to get that all done. So they are in the middle of doing that right now.
With mom? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. And Jeff is there also.
Yeah, and Mr. Hill's with them, trying to get that done. I was just gonna let the court know if he's late logging in, that's what we're doing right now.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So we just need to wait.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Kim, and I think they took some witnesses and ran over there, to get all that done.
Okay. And let me just verify. So, Mr. Tidwell?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I just want to make sure you can hear me and we can hear you. So. Okay, Mr. Tidwell, your attorney is present. Do you need to speak with him?
I'm not sure.
Mr. Nowak, you need to talk with him before we start.
Never hurts, Judge.
We're here today scheduled for our final. We are conducting this through Zoom under a finding of good cause and agreement of the parties. We are live streaming and Ms. Taylor is making our record. All right, we'll take announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services, present ready, Your Honor.
Jeff Hill on behalf of Rochelle Long. Judge, she is not here. She just, I just got done meeting with her and she signed a relinquishment. That relinquishment has been given to the department and Ms. Long will not be appearing, so I'm ready.
All right, thank you.
Judge Vince Nowak on behalf of Denny Tidwell. We are both here and subject to my motion to extend, we are ready.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of Liam.
All right. Mr. Nowak, I've slept since I read the motion that you filed, but my recollection was that I didn't see any extraordinary circumstances recited in that.
And they likely weren't there, Judge. It was more of a pro forma motion, but I'm prepared to argue it if the court would give me leave.
Yeah, I mean, that's what obviously the statute requires me to find it, that there are extraordinary circumstances, to extend the case. So, your motion had just indicated you needed some additional time to review documents, consult with the court. And anyway, so it was more like a motion for continuance than it was an extension. The dismissal date isn't until July 1st. So are you really arguing more of a motion for continuance at this time?
I'll argue whatever the court will give me today. And if the court will allow, I'll elaborate.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. And may it please the court. As the court knows, Mr. Tidwell is the non-offending parent here. He was in prison when Liam was removed. He's in prison because the state of Texas put him there, obviously. The state of Texas also removed his child while he was in prison, and then the state of Texas demanded that he complete services while he's in prison. As this court well knows, it's virtually impossible to complete services while you're in prison. So it's kind of like, I hate to keep pointing the finger at the state, but they put him in prison, they took his kid, they ordered him to work services, but then they say, oh, by the way, you can't work services while you're in prison. I did file I think I styled it father's self-study while he's in prison. He did well over 100, perhaps several hundred podcasts while he was in prison. And Mr. Tidwell will testify today that he has completed a 9-month sex offender course while in prison. He's weeks away from completing a parenting course while he's in prison, but I'm not sure those are going to transfer over like credits in college and work for us here in your court. His release date, Judge, is a couple months out. It's 2 months after the dismissal date. And whether we call it a motion for continuance or for 6 months, and I'm just going off the 6-month scenario, Judge, he will have close to 3 months to work services once he gets out. And I think we ought to give him that opportunity. I don't think that we lose. What do we lose if we give him the opportunity to work services? Again, I know it's dicey arguing this, that the state requires services, but they won't let him do it. And I get the fact he's in prison. There's not a whole lot you can do in prison. However, he's going to be out shortly after the current dismissal date, and I don't see any harm in extending it 6 months to give the man a chance to work services once he is released. And that's all I have, Judge.
So he was sentenced to 12 years?
Correct.
All right, and that sentence commenced in like 2011?
Correct.
All right, and all right, you're saying is it an absolute release date?
I believe so, and
Yes,
I would defer to my client if I may to answer that question, Your Honor.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am. It's absolute.
All right, and again, what was that date?
September 23rd.
Like I said, I mean, it's early to consider the extension. So, all right, I just want to hear everybody's response then. So, Mr. Trout, you get to.
Yes, ma'am, Your Honor. We, at this time, we'd be opposed to it due to the fact, and I understand Mr. Nowak's argument that the state of Texas put him there, but we didn't commit the crime that put him there. Mr. Tidwell did that on his own. The plea deal, he had pled to it and took the 12 years. The charge that he is in on is actually a grounds for termination also, due to it, the nature of the crime that was committed. If we extended, like Mr. Nowak said, he would have about 3 months to work services, but we still have the issue of his criminal conviction as a grounds for termination at this time.
Is he going to be required to register?
I believe so, Your Honor.
He is, Judge, and he'll be in weekly therapy classes when he gets out. And I recognize that it is a ground for termination, but ultimately it's left to the discretion of the court. And I won't have evidence to put on how he's rehabilitated until he's out of prison, Judge.
Well, the issue, that's really not even the issue. The issue is he will be required to register, and this child is a 3-year-old child. I mean, he won't be able to have contact with the child.
I don't have the case law off the top of my head, but I have read several cases in the last couple of weeks, Judge, that leaves it in your discretion if it's his child and he hadn't.
Not my discretion. I didn't enter the criminal conviction. I don't know what his conviction says.
Well, and Judge, I haven't.
No, ma'am. I'm allowed to have my kids. It's because I did not commit the crime against any of my own children. So my children are not stipulated in the stipulations, ma'am.
Well, I need one of the attorneys to do you have that as one of your exhibits?
I got the documents as far as the plea admonishments, everything, Your Honor. I have not seen whether it does or does not stipulate that. As to, and I believe it's not a hard and fast rule that he can't. It is what is ordered by that court, and I have not seen where it is or is not as far as his conditions once he gets out on that, just the admonishment that he will have to register.
Yes, and also I would like to throw out there that it was a 15-year-old female, not a male or my own child. So I can just.
Hey, Daniel, let me take it from here, man.
Sorry.
Well, that's the penultimate question. So if we need to break here and let somebody look into that or find that out, because I feel like my hands are tied until I know the answer to that question. I mean, we can simply reset, today, so that you all have time to look into that and find out for sure. I mean, right now we have until July 1st, which is the dismissal date. So if you're going to need some time to find that out, then I'm happy to we'll just reset it right now. And I think it's really an issue of resetting it closer to maybe to that dismissal date, and then entertain whether there are extraordinary circumstances as the family code defines that and as case law defines that, to extend the case. Because we know, it's really more like a motion for continuance right now, Mr. Novak, and we know that between now and July 1st, he's not going to, he might be able to find some other services that he could work or complete parenting, but he's not going to be able to do everything else in his service plan. So I think it's more appropriate to just continue the final closer to that date and then take up the request for the 6-month extension at that time.
And I would appreciate that, Your Honor, and that would give me time to brief the issue.
Yeah, so not only do we need the actual underlying documents that are going to answer that question, I need to know that before I would rule on, quite frankly, on any of it. So it would seem to be the most relevant piece of information.
And I don't see it indicated on any of these so far, Judge. I'll keep going through them, but I don't see where it's indicated one way or the other.
All right, so Ms. Katie, let's look at an alternative date.
Judge, when I set the after final, I set it on a date that would work as the final as well. So we can do June the 20th if that works.
All right. So let's reset to June 20th, and all I can tell you is everybody be prepared to argue and give me case law, and I guess depending on whether he can or what his conditions are. If he's required to register and this child will be covered, under that, then there's not much point in going any further with it. But so anyway, y'all know what you need to do. So
thank you, Judge.
Okay. So we will reset to June 20th, 2024. That'll be on a 9 o'clock docket. Mr. Novak, if you need anything from us to get Mr. Tidwell brought back in on that date, just let us know.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay.
Judge, do we need to go ahead and do a review today then?
Probably. I don't know. Let's see. I'm looking. Yeah, because it was December. So yes. Okay. So let's just go ahead and get an update on anything that's happened since the court report was filed.
Liam's doing well in his placement. He is still receiving speech therapy, and his speech is improving a lot. So I'm really proud of him and his foster parents for working with him outside of his therapy. He also goes to dance class and really enjoys that too. So other than that, I don't think there's much other than what we found out today. So.
All right. Okay. Mr. Hill, just as far as a review or an update, I obviously know your client is relinquished. Anything else that you need to update us with today?
No, Judge, is it possible to have a breakout room with the attorneys?
Yes.
And you?
Yes, sure. Okay, so Mr. Hill, anything else with respect to our review today?
Sorry, I was muted. No, ma'am.
All right. Okay. Ms. Ball.
Your Honor, Liam's doing great. He works on his sign language and he's working on his language. They've got all kinds of structure and visual calendars to help them communicate and for him to know what to anticipate during the day. His behavior he's really responded to redirection and to calming techniques, and he is just thriving where he is, and I recommend that placement continue.
All right, thank you. Okay, then. So for today, I will continue the department as temporary managing conservator, and I will continue child's placement, find that there would be a continuing danger to return the child home, or impossible to return the child home to Mr. Tidwell. And we will reset this final for June 20th, 2024 on a 9 o'clock docket. And then we will take up Mr. Nowak's request for extension of the case at that time. So, all right. I'll see everybody back. Ms. Vala, you're wanting placement in?
Yes, Your Honor, there is an issue that I need to address regarding placement.
Yeah, the daycare situation.
Yeah.
And Mr. Taylor, your client was
I spoke to her about an hour ago, and she did have the link and was expecting to link in at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to tell you. She was logged in. I let her in from the waiting room, and she just never did connect. And now she's completely gone. So I don't know if she's having a difficult time connecting.
I will try to call and see what's going on. I got hold of her and she said she got so far and it just said it's connecting, and then it just circled there and kept circling. So told her to get out and start over and try again.
Okay.
And so maybe it'll work this time. She should be trying to connect again right now.
Let me ask, I'm kind of concerned about time. I've got other people that are already logging in for a 1:30 hearing. Do we have any agreements in this case, or?
We're in agreement on it. She had a couple of questions that she wanted to address with you regarding the visitation, and in particular, she wanted to address a request with regard to a child's birthday.
Okay, she's logged in now, but she doesn't connect. She hasn't connected to audio.
Oh my, okay.
I'm assuming we don't have service yet on Mr. Dickinson.
I have not. I checked a while ago. It has not been filed or come back yet. Yeah.
All right. He's an alleged father in this. Okay, we can address that, but it seems we might as well go ahead and get started on genetic testing.
And Judge, if we could go ahead and bring in Miss Flora.
What?
2,000 years later.
Yes, Your Honor, I do have her on the speakerphone with me here in the office with me.
Okay, great.
I believe you'll be able to hear her sufficiently.
Okay. We're here on the reset of our adversary hearing. We're conducting this through Zoom under a finding of good cause and agreement of the parties. And we're live streaming, and Ms. Taylor is making our record. Okay, we'll go ahead and take announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. We're present ready.
Bill Taylor for Harley Lynch, and although she's not actually connected to the hearing, I do have her on speakerphone with me in my office.
JC Zavala for Tommy.
All right, Mr. Trout, where are we at?
Yes, well, I know Mr. Taylor mentioned a while ago, he thought we had an agreement. There was a couple of things that Mom wanted to address. If that is the case, I believe we'd need to take testimony as to Dad.
Okay.
And I believe that Ms. Zavala had mentioned she had something to address regarding the placement.
All right, so Mr. Taylor, what's your client?
My client is in agreement with the request for temporary orders. Basically, she has already gotten a jump start on her services. She's had her OSAR already and has, I believe, participated in a couple of her first couple of her parenting classes and or counseling sessions. Anyway, she's getting a good start, even though we hadn't even got the adversary hearing over with yet. She's had a visit or two with her child. She would like more than just 1 hour a week, but she realizes that that may not happen until down the road. The placement is with a paternal aunt of the child, and Tommy has a birthday coming up on the 20th. That's only 4 days a week away. I believe that's on Saturday or Sunday. And Ms. Lynch would very much like to be able to attend his birthday party if that's at all possible for the court to consider. And that's basically the issues that we have here.
Okay. All right, so let me just find out. Number one, I guess it would be if first we would need to know is the party going to happen at placement? Are they having it somewhere, or what's the plan?
I don't have those specifics. I guess we would have to find those specifics from the placement or the caseworker.
Sorrel, I think that might be a question for y'all.
I was talking to Marissa Herrera, who's been handling the case from St. Francis, a little bit about that, but Sorrel, if you could unmute, maybe she would know, because I believe the birthday party will be at her house. Sorrel, would that be correct?
Yes, there would be a duration of about 2 to 3 hours for the party here at the house.
Do you all have an objection to her being there?
On behalf, no, we're on our side.
Okay, we didn't get that because somebody was talking over you, so.
We don't have a problem with her being here for a couple of hours.
You're breaking up really badly. Let me suggest you turn your video off and just let's just try to use just audio because it's breaking up very badly. You're going to have to just completely start over.
In regards to the birthday party, it would be about 2 to 3 hours on Saturday in the afternoon. Time is I'm waiting to kind of figure out what's going to happen today, but it would be Saturday for 2 to 3 hours, and there is no issues with her being here for the birthday party.
All right, let me just ask, would the department have any problem with that?
The only issue, I'm sorry, Joe. The only issue I would have, Judge, is, there was a issue with drug use in this case, methamphetamines. The last test we had was positive. I don't think she's been tested since then. That would be, if we could get a drug screen that she's negative right now, I don't think I'd have a problem with it. But I believe Joel was about to say something on that also, Your Honor.
No, it was along the same lines, and make sure that St. Francis worker who's handling the case was in agreement. I think she was, but I'm not sure if she cleared with supervisory personnel at St. Francis.
It was a hair test that she was positive on, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I think let's just do if we can get her in to get a UA done, possibly this afternoon.
Okay.
So that we can get results back, hopefully. If it's negative, then if the UA is negative, then I'm fine for her to attend the party. As long as placement needs to understand she has to be supervised at all times, so she can't be left alone with the child at any point in time.
That's understood.
And so if the test is negative, those results will come back a lot faster. So hopefully we will get that. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, then. Ms. Zavala, what issues did you have to raise?
Your Honor, he is placed with paternal aunt. I've met with him at the home, met with her, and met with grandmother. Both paternal aunt and paternal grandmother are present today at the hearing. The issue is that aunt has to go to work very early. There is daycare set up for him, but there's a period of time between Monday and Thursday in the morning, if I understand correctly, approximately an hour where somebody would need to come to the home, make sure he's ready, and then transport him to daycare so that aunt can get to work on time. We are requesting that paternal grandmother be considered for that. And it's my understanding that aunt really has no other way to make that happen. And so if we can't get that coverage, it really puts the placement in doubt. It's my understanding that paternal grandmother has some old, I want to say 13-year-old finding, CPS finding. But she is here and can testify and answer any questions that we need to.
So let me just clarify, would she be coming to the aunt's home early in the morning?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and other than whatever old history, then she's a valid driver's license, all those other normal concerns are.
You know, I believe so. I honestly don't know that I asked that question, so we probably need to get clarification on that from Tony Powers is the grandmother.
Okay, Ms. Powers, do you have a valid driver's license?
There you go. Yes, ma'am, I do. I have valid driver's license. My insurance is valid. I have a car seat for him. Anything else you'd like to know, ma'am?
Okay, and can you tell me what history that you had, just briefly, what was your history with the department about?
Well, my history is basically that it was one of my stepdaughters that we got out of CPS, and she was around 15 or 16, very upset because I wouldn't let her go see her biological mother, and threw a 44-ounce soda in my face, or at my face, and I just automatically threw it back at her, threw mine that I had in my hand at her, and then I'm not even sure what the file says, but I do know that she was trying to go back to CPS because they thought she thought they were going to allow her to go to her biological mother. So I don't even know what she told them. She's supposed to be getting me a letter from, she's also in jail, and she's supposed to be getting me a letter as soon as she can, certified and notarized from where she's at, recanting what she said.
All right. Anybody from the department, Mr. Rodriguez, anything from the department that will contradict that?
No, that is correct. It was a reason to believe in 2011 for physical abuse. And in reading the file briefly, it was kind of old, so there's not a whole lot there, but it does, I think it says that it was more the stepfather or the biological father, that Tony Powers' husband, that hit her in the mouth and did some other things. And Tony Powers, I think she just punched her in the arm, is what the teenager claimed. And that's the extent of why she was validated for physical abuse back then.
Okay. All right.
And Judge, if I may ask Ms. Powers a few things.
Sure.
Ms. Powers, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have any criminal history, any recent criminal history?
Not any recent, no, sir. I've been out of jail for 23 years.
Okay. You haven't had any other criminal cases in the last 23 years?
I had one for failure to report my stepson working. It was a misdemeanor for food stamps.
Okay. When was that?
I believe it was 2007.
And that was the last. Did you have You said in 23 years, did you have extensive history back then, or was it just a few things?
I had some, I mean, yeah, I had some extensive then. I was getting in trouble, doing all kinds of stuff, not following probation. Money, there was a money problem.
What do you mean money problem?
I worked for a lady and, well, it was for actually a company in Lubbock, and death by check or something like that. I don't recall the actual charge on that, but that was back in 1999 or 2000,
Okay.
right at 2000.
Any drug history?
From 1990.
Okay, but none recent?
No, sir.
You've been clean since then?
Absolutely.
You said you were.
I have a job that I get UA'd all the time, so.
Okay. Were you, you said you were on probation. Was that for the theft by check, or was that for something else?
That was for the possession charge in 1993, somewhere like that. I can't remember exactly. I just remember it was early 90s.
Okay. And you currently hold a job?
Yes, I've worked for the Sonic Corporation. I'm a GM, and I've worked for them for 14 years.
Okay. I have no further questions, John.
Okay. All right, so Ms. Zavala, what is your recommendation on this matter?
Your Honor, I do think it would be in Tommy's best interest to stay where he is and to enable grandmother to transport him in the mornings if needed. I do believe that that would be in his best interest.
All right. Okay, I'm gonna allow her to do that. So that we can keep Tommy in a relative placement and try to make all this work, so.
And Judge, on that, I know the request is to help transport to and from daycare. Are we spelling it out to where that is what she can help with? I mean, I know, it's my understanding, I think grandmother and mom work together, is my understanding.
Right.
And so I just want to make sure that that is the only place she's transporting the child, is from placement to daycare at this point. Is that what we're asking for, Ms. Zavala?
Yes, and then potentially if an emergency comes up, if any transportation is needed in the afternoon from daycare back to placement. But I agree, and grandmother and I had a talk about not letting mom around, and I agree that Tommy does not need to be transported someplace where mom might be.
Correct. Yeah.
And that if we could, Judge, while Ms. Powers is transporting the child, it's just Ms. Powers.
Right. No,
we don't want anybody else in the car, any other people, family, anybody. Or at the house if she's having to watch the child at the house for placement till placement gets home.
Correct. So Ms. Powers, you understand all of that?
Yes, ma'am, I do. And I can put my grandson first. I will not let Harley see him or anything without permission from the court.
Okay. All right.
And is I believe there was a placement son that was also has been approved to do some transporting. Is that correct?
Yes, it's my understanding it's a 19-year-old, and that with his work schedule, he can help a little bit, but definitely not all the time.
Okay, and I'm assuming he understands that role also, that he's the only one transporting. I've never talked to him, Judge, so I don't think he's here. So
I have not spoken with him either.
Okay.
Mr. Rodriguez, have you discussed that with the son?
Yes, well, not me, but I did have a conversation with Marissa, the current worker who got that approved, and that's been pretty specific from St. Francis. The conditions that he not have the mother around or take the child anyone else who might be around.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, on those conditions, then I'll approve that. All right, then, Mr. Trout, if you want to, call witness as quickly as we can to cover Mr. Dickinson, that'd be great.
Yes, ma'am. I'd call Joel Rodriguez, Your Honor. And how did the department become involved in this case?
We had got a police media assist call out March the 12th, last month, that they had found him outside wandering the area.
Okay. And you were able to find out who the mother was?
Oh, yes.
And you heard mother's attorney a second ago. Excuse me. What is mother's name?
Harley Lynch.
And you heard Ms. Lynch's attorney state a while ago that mom is in agreement with department having temporary managing conservatorship.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did mom tell you in your conversations with mom, did she advise you of who dad was?
Oh, yes, she did. Tommy Allen Dickinson.
Okay. And do you know where Mr. Dickinson is?
Yes, he's in prison, state of Texas.
Okay. So he's in state prisons in the TDCJ?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Have you been able to have contact with him?
I had one brief conversation with him on March 19th. On March 19th. Yeah, it was a brief conversation where he was informed of what was going on. He was actually calling Harley Lynch the mother, which he checks in with occasionally. But I had a short conversation with him.
Have letters been mailed to him in regards to the case?
Yes, the removal packet and the letters and.
So he is aware. He is fully aware of the case today.
Yes, I believe he is.
Okay. Did you send in that packet? Did you send paperwork for an attorney?
Yes, the indigency application. Yes.
Okay. Have you received any of that back?
No, not as of yet. Not as of today.
Okay. And where is he located? Beaumont?
I'll speak with you about it, Harley, after the, okay. Apologize, John.
I believe he's in the style. My understanding, he's in the styles unit in the TDJT program.
Okay. Do you know? Has he told you when his release date is?
No, not specifically, but I did read on the website and the information I have that his projected release date September the 6th of 25.
Okay.
2025.
His maximum date's a little over a year away.
Yes, that's correct.
Did he discuss any placement options with you or where he would like the child to go?
Yeah, yes, he did. He had told me he preferred his mother, Tony Powers, but if that couldn't be possible, he said that his sister, he was okay with his sister. That was the second best option, Sorrel Oseguera.
Okay, so where the child is placed currently?
Yes, that's correct.
In this case involved, you said that y'all were called due to the child wandering.
Yes.
And mom drug screened for you.
Yes, she did.
And those were some concerning results.
Yes, both on the oral swab and the hair strand test, they were both positive.
Okay. And mom, after those tests, when mom was confronted, did she admit or deny those?
For the oral, she first denied it, and then only until we got back the results of the second, more thorough test, the hair strand, she admitted that she had been using methamphetamine.
And due to the child wandering outside the apartment unattended, mom's admittance to the drug use and dad being in prison, do you believe it was best interest of the child to remove at that time?
Yes.
And child is placed with family.
That's correct.
And as we just discussed, child is going to and from daycare also?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you believe it's in the best interest of the child to stay in temporary managing conservatorship of the state and for parents to work services?
Yes, I do.
How is the child doing at this time? Have you seen it lately?
The last time I saw him at daycare, he was doing real well, really happy-go-lucky, lucky child. He seemed to be liking the daycare, excited.
Do you have any concerns with the child at this time?
No concerns.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Taylor, any
Yes,
questions?
The child didn't actually get away and wander while in the mother's care, did he? She was at work. She was at work and had left him with a sitter. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And it was the sitter who had failed to keep proper eye on the child and had gotten out. Correct?
That's correct.
And you had documented both in your supporting affidavit and then again in your investigative report that he was clean and healthy, had no marks or bruises indicating any kind of abuse possible, and was happy and developmentally on target and of an appropriate size and weight. And basically you had no concerns about his health or condition. Is that correct?
The physical condition, yes, that's correct.
The oral swab and the hair sample were collected both the same time on March the 12th?
No, different times.
And different, but both were collected on March 12th?
No, the oral swab was collected March the 12th, and when that came back positive, we requested the hair strand March, so that was collected March the 18th. The hair strand. 6 days later.
And both of them came back 669.
Came back what? I'm sorry.
Your reports indicate both of them came back with the same number on the math, 669. Is that correct?
No, the oral swab was 669 on the meth, and the hair strand was 2689.
Okay, counsel, I thought this was agreed, and all we were taking up was issues about father.
I thought it was too, Your Honor, but
hang on.
I apologize.
Amy can't take both of us. You know that. All right. I don't know why we're going into all this.
Well, I thought it was too, Your Honor, but Mr. Trout went into it, so I thought I'd follow up on it.
I understand, and he stopped just in time before I interrupted him. So I guess I'm not sure why we need to go through all this.
No further questions.
Okay. Ms. Zavala?
I have no questions, Your Honor.
All right. Anybody have any other questions they need to ask Mr. Rodriguez?
No question, John.
Okay. All right, then, Mr. Taylor, any witnesses to call?
No, Your Honor.
All right, and Ms. Zavala, any witnesses today?
No witnesses, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Zavala, do you have a recommendation?
I do believe it's in Tommy's best interest to remain in the temporary managing conservatorship of the department, and to remain at the placement he is in now.
All right, thank you. Okay, then, based on the mother's agreement and then based on the evidence I've heard today regarding the father, I do find the evidence is sufficient to name the department as temporary managing conservator. I find that there would be a continuing danger to return the child home to the mother, and that it's impossible to return the child home to the father due to his incarceration. I will expect the department to use reasonable efforts to reunify the family. I will order Ms. Lynch to go do a UA before 4 o'clock today. And if that's negative, then she can attend the child's birthday party this coming weekend. I'll sign the order when it's presented. Our status hearing will be May 21st of 2024. And that'll be on a 9 o'clock docket. We'll talk more about her services at that time, but it sounds like she's gotten off to a really good start. Ms. Lynch, just keep up the good work, and this can all have a good outcome. Okay, I appreciate everybody. Thank you all. We are here on a reset of our adversary hearing. We are conducting this through Zoom under a finding of good cause and agreement of the parties, or at least of their attorneys. And we're live streaming and Ms. Taylor is making our record. All right, we'll go ahead and take announcements.
Daniel Trout for the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. We're present, ready.
Joel Jackson on behalf of the mother, Bethany Barbary. I'm present, Your Honor. It's my understanding from the last hearing that she was going to catch a ride to my office with St. Francis, and I haven't seen her this afternoon. I don't know if St. Francis has been in touch with her or not.
Okay, we'll find out here in just a minute.
Jerry Morales for respondent father, Dusty Wells. I wrote him at the address he had provided when he filled out his attorney request form, but I have not had any contact. So if he is on, I would probably need to speak with him briefly.
Okay, he is not logged in.
Okay, Judge. I'm ready.
Stacy Zavala on behalf of the boys.
All right, so let's back up to Mr. Jackson's inquiry. I do remember we had, Jerry, I'm gonna mute. I'm getting a lot of feedback from you. I do remember the discussion about her being given a ride to Mr. Jackson's office. So where have we had contact with her?
Judge, the last contact had by the worker was on 4/11. Since that time, she has tried to call her and has gone by the house and has been unsuccessful in locating her. And mom has not reached out to the worker either to ask for transportation.
Did anybody go over there today prior to this hearing?
I'm not sure. Let me find out the last day she went. And she's had no contact with dad either. The last day she was at the house was last Thursday. So she did not go today.
Mr. Jackson, have you had any contact with your client? I mean, has she called you? Has she said, hey, nobody is here to pick me up? Or
Judge, no, I didn't get a call like that. I did speak with her on April the 2nd and kind of gave her the rundown on what we did at our previous hearing on the 2nd and what took place as far as the home studies and things of that nature, and that she could get a ride.
okay. All right, well, was she also given the Zoom link in any other communication?
I doubt that we sent her one, Judge. The only number that we have for her is a number at the Sundown Motel, for which we have an extension. She doesn't have a cell phone, so she doesn't have the ability to log on to Zoom, as far as I understand.
Okay, and I guess the same question for the department or anybody with St. Francis.
Judge Baker, I attempted yesterday to call the hotel 3 times to get a hold of her. They stated she was not at the people in the rooms living with her stated that she was not there present, but would pass on the message. Even a special investigator that has been helping me with this case tried to go locate them, and he was unsuccessful as well.
Okay. All right.
And Judge, with that being said, my office did try to reach out before the hearing today to contact her. We got a hold of somebody there at that room who gave us the same information. She's not there, and they would pass the message along if they see her.
And also Michelle confirms that she would have no way to get onto Zoom, even if she had the link.
Okay. Yeah, other than if she could use somebody else's device, but okay. All right. Well, it sounded like she was aware of today's hearing. What's the status on service?
And I don't see that either one has come back served, Your Honor. I don't think we've been able to find them either.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. Let me check, but I'm pretty sure it hasn't come back today, but let me check real quick.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any return service.
No, ma'am, we have not been able to reach them at the address that we had. I don't know that we had the address for the Sundown Hotel. I think we had a different address as far as where we were told, they originally told they would work, but we will try to get them over there if we can get that address.
Okay. Well, we'll go ahead and proceed today. So if you want, who are you going to call?
Brittany Perez, John. And how are you familiar with that case?
I was the investigator assigned to the case.
Okay, you kind of cut out some. Could you say that again?
I was the investigator assigned to the case.
When did the department originally become involved in this case?
On February 14th, the department received an intake concerning abuse or neglect.
And were you the investigator at that time?
Yes,
Were you able to make contact with the parents?
I was.
Okay. And did you discuss the allegations with the parents?
I did.
Okay. And were parents ordered to, or was a FBSS case opened up at that time?
No.
So when you originally became involved and met with the parents, what were your conversations with them?
I attempted to make contact with them on February the 14th to do the initial contact. When I made contact, Miss Bethany was not present, but Mr. Wells was. I read over the Form 3010 and he refused to talk with me.
Were you able to meet with mother at a later date?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And what were your conversations with mother at that time?
I informed her that there's concerns for the children being exposed to concerning individuals as well as exposure to possible drugs.
Okay.
I then notified her there was an order to aid. I'm sorry.
Okay. And on an order to aid, were you able to see the children?
Yes.
And how were the children at that time?
They were wearing appropriate clothing. They did seem a little disheveled as far as appearance, but overall they had no concerning marks or bruises.
Okay. What happened after that?
We notified her about an order to aid where we had to have entrance or access to the home where the children reside. She allowed me to do that. And then I instructed her that the children were scheduled for a bridge interview, for a forensic interview.
Okay. Did those interviews happen?
Yes, they did.
Okay. Were you present during those interviews?
Yes, I was.
Did children make any outcries during those interviews?
Yes, one of them did.
And how old was Ben at the time?
I believe he was 12.
All right, you're breaking up. Try that again.
12.
He was 12 at the time? Okay. And what outcries did Bentley make?
He had stated that a male individual that was in their home appeared to be deceased from taking fentanyl. And so the parents kind of got upset and put him next door.
Put who next door?
The male individual who overdosed on fentanyl.
Okay. And it was next door. Is that in an apartment complex or a house? What do you mean by that?
It's a duplex with 2 houses.
Okay. Did Bentley state that he was bothered by that?
He overall just scared and upset. They didn't know what was going on.
Any of the other children make any outcries during interviews?
No.
What happened after that? Where did y'all go from there?
I attempted to meet or send drug analysis for Mr. Dusty and Bethany to do a complete hair follicle and urine. Following that, after I dropped them off after the bridge interview, I lost contact with the family.
And when you say lost contact with them, do you mean that day or for a while?
After I dropped them off, that was the last time I saw the children for a while.
Okay. When were you able to make, well, let me back up. Did you go back by where the family was living?
Yes, multiple times.
Were they living there anymore?
We had more reason to believe that they were still living there, just no access, no one answering the door, or no vehicle present that we could see.
Okay. When were you able to contact the family again?
It wasn't until March 20th, whenever a special investigator who was assigned the case to help me locate the family had found them.
Okay. And how did you find them at that time?
We had a law enforcement escort us just because of the conditions of the home and special investigators seeing concerning individuals in and out of the home. So we had a civil standby with law enforcement and the children were present in the home.
Did you run into one of the children somewhere else before that?
Yes, Bentley did.
Okay. And where did you see Bentley?
He was on Amarillo Boulevard and near Seminole riding his scooter where he attempted to flee from me.
Was this during school hours?
Yes.
Was during the week?
Mhm.
Was Bentley supposed to be in school at that time?
It was alleged that they are doing homeschooling by his parents.
Okay. Have you ever had any verification on that or?
No.
Did Bentley tell you where he was living?
He couldn't tell me the address, but he said that he could kind of point it out to me because he didn't know where the address was.
And then you said you and a special investigator were able to locate them. Is that later that day or another day?
Another day on March 20th.
And where were you able to locate them?
At 1302 North Lake Street.
Were the children in the home?
Yes.
All four of them were in the home?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Was this during a weekday also?
Yes.
What was the condition of the house when you went in?
It was very physically deemed unsafe. There was a strong odor of feces as well as cat urine. It was dry, like you could tell that there was like dried feces on the floor. There was no age-appropriate beds to be found. There was multiple individuals sleeping on the floor. I did encounter one woman who appeared to be under the influence of drugs as she almost ran into me as she was drooling and she was running into the walls.
Okay. Did the house have utilities? Did it have power, electricity, water, all that?
Yes, there was utilities, like the power on. We couldn't test the water just because of how scattered and cluttered it was.
Okay. Where were the children in the home when you got there?
Inside the main living area.
Okay. Was there any family members for them there?
Yes, paternal grandmother Sylvia Hinkleman was present with the children.
Is there concerns with paternal grandmother, or was that her house, or was that somebody else's house?
It was somebody else's house.
Okay. Did grandmother live there, or was she just there with the kids?
They were currently staying there due to them being evicted from their home.
Okay. Did you find out where parents were?
I was later found that they were going back and forth from the Sundown Hotel and to the address Lake Street to check in on the children daily.
Okay. Were you able to make contact with the parents on this day?
Yes. So when at the time I moved, I went back. When we got the children into the department, I went back to Lake and I found Miss Barbary there.
Did you have a conversation with her?
Yes, I did.
And what did that conversation involve?
I notified her that the children had been removed and went over all the paperwork with her, informed her, there's concerns for drug usage, children, not being physically taken care of, and she understood.
So when you went into the home with law enforcement, y'all removed the kids at that time?
Yes.
Under exigent circumstances?
Yes.
Did you discuss at that time any drug usage or anything with mom?
No. The only time I ever had a drug conversation with her was a phone call that I had prior.
Okay. Were you able to make any contact with dad at that time?
No.
Have you been able to make contact with dad at any time since?
No.
After the children were removed, did you have any other, outside of that one, any other conversations with mom?
Yes. Contacting her about, getting a hold of St. Francis, notifying her of her attorney, and her attempting to work services.
Okay. Do you know where mom is living now?
I do not.
Okay. Do you believe you knew where mom was living or staying?
Yes.
And where was that?
At Sundown Hotel.
Have you tried to contact mom recently at that address?
Not physically, but over the phone.
Okay. Have you been successful in your attempts to contact her?
Yes. I was able to contact her before the first hearing that we had, and then I have not been able to since then.
Okay. Has mom or dad reached out to try to set up any visitations with the children at this time?
No,
Have you been contacted by the parents at any time since the removal, inquiring just to how the children are doing?
no,
Did parents at any time ever give you names of any potential placements?
yes.
Okay. And where are the children placed right now?
They're in the foster agency.
Are we looking into any of the family members that the parents have given?
Yes, we got or the department received a home study back last Friday for paternal cousins,
And where do they live?
El Paso, Texas.
Do you know at this time if that home study has been reviewed and approved, or is it just gotten back and waiting for approval?
Yes. So I checked in with Michelle Silva, the caseworker, last Friday. She stated that her supervisor in the department or St. Francis received it on Friday and should know something by the end of this week.
So it's in the review process right now. Due to your personal knowledge of the case, meeting with the parents, and the conditions in which the home the children were in were found, do you believe it was in the best interest of the children to remove at that time?
Yes, I do.
And you stated that outside of a phone call or two with mom, you've not had any contact with dad. And
no.
And neither parent has reached out to inquire as to the well-being of the children at this time.
Correct.
Is the department asking today for the court to award temporary managing conservatorship to the department and for the parents to work services?
Yes.
And you believe that's in the best interest of the children?
Yes.
How are the children doing at this time?
They're thriving. The children stated that they are happy that they have a safe place to stay, getting 3 meals a day, and they really like their foster home.
Okay. You stated that the children were not in school, that they were supposed to be being homeschooled. Were
Yes.
were they behind in school?
It appears that they were, based off paperwork, having them sign their names. Some of them struggled with writing their names and stuff like that.
Are they currently going to school?
Yes, they are.
And how are they doing with that?
From what I've been told, they are getting tested. They're going to take the STAR test to kind of see where they're at as a baseline, but they know that there are some delays with education from what the school has seen so far.
Are we worried about any mental or physical delays, or is it just delays in schoolwork at this time?
Delays in schoolwork.
Okay. But other than that, the children are doing fine and adjusting well to placements.
Yes.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Jackson, any questions?
Briefly, Your Honor. Ma'am, you had testified that you all had done, or the department had done an assessment on a cousin in El Paso. Is that correct?
St. Francis did.
St. Francis did. And you, I don't think I heard you. Was that a paternal or maternal cousin?
Paternal cousin.
Okay. Your Honor, I don't have any further questions.
Okay, and Mr. Morales,
No questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Zavala?
Ms. Perez, originally, the boys were placed, the 3 youngest in one placement, the oldest somewhere else, but now they're all together, correct?
Yes.
Did the boys mention to you not wanting to have contact with their parents right now?
Not necessarily, but they are not surprised they haven't heard from them.
Would it surprise you if they've indicated that they may need some time before they have a visit with them?
No, it would not surprise me.
I believe at the last hearing, I had asked for a simultaneous home study of a great grandmother. Do you know if that was requested? It was in Oklahoma.
When I spoke to Michelle last week, they were going to start that process as well, as they were still working on the one in El Paso.
I pass witness.
All right, Mr. Trout, anything further with this witness?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Anybody else have any questions for Ms. Perez?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Chuck, anybody have any objection to her being released at this time?
I have no objection. Your Honor.
No
Objection.
objection.
No objection.
Okay, Ms. Perez, you are free to go. You're certainly welcome to stay, but you're free to leave and go on about your day's business. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez.
All right, any additional witnesses?
No additional witnesses, Your Honor, just a statement of request. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Jackson?
No witnesses, Your Honor.
All right, and do you rest?
Arrest.
Yep, Mr. Morales?
No witnesses, Your Honor. Rest.
All right, and Ms. Zavala?
No witnesses, I would rest.
All right, Ms. Zavala, what's your recommendation today?
Your Honor, I've met with the boys, the youngest 3 in person, but then was able to speak with Gabe by phone. They are doing very well all together, and they are very glad to be all together. The 2 older boys for sure have expressed to me concerns about school and being behind. I think everybody's really grateful that we've got some family members out there that are stepping up. I understand that home study from the home in El Paso should be evaluated in the next little bit. I do want to reiterate my request for the simultaneous home study with the great grandmother in Oklahoma. And in speaking with the boys, their preference is to remain where they are until the end of the school year, because they feel like they're just now getting, kind of where they can get caught up. It's my recommendation that happen as well. Again, I'm thrilled that there are some home studies out there, and I'm hopeful that we can make one of those work. But I do think that it should be after the kids finish up this school year. But other than that, I do believe it's in the boys' best interest to remain in the temporary managing conservatorship of the department at this time.
Okay. Okay, everybody just stay put for just a quick second. And I'll be right back with you. I'm having Miss Katie scan a letter and email it to all of you for your reference, but it's from an outfit called the WIT, WHIT program. So I'll come back to that here in just a minute. It's an agency that tutors children in foster care. It's a statewide thing. And I want to be sure that St. Francis is aware of this, because I have a feeling we've got some kiddos that are going to be seriously behind in school. And I think it sounds like a really good program. Okay.
Your Honor, but just real quick before you make your ruling, I would say that just due to the nature of this case, and to, I believe, children have made some statements about not wanting visits right now, that if parents are located, that they would be required to drug screen prior to any type of visitations, and that St. Francis be allowed to take in consideration whether the children want the visits at that time before we get those set up, Your Honor.
Okay.
I'm in complete agreement on that.
All right, then at this time, I do find the evidence is sufficient to name the Department of Family and Protective Services as the temporary managing conservator of all the 4 children. I will find that there would be an ongoing and continuing danger to the children to return them home to the parents at this time. I will order that the parents will drug test before they are given any access to the children, and that the children, due to their ages, can decline seeing parents or having visits with parents if they choose to do so. Okay, I'm going to want St. Francis to take a look at this information that we're sending. If they're not aware of that program, I would like for somebody to do some looking into it. I mean, it sounds like they are tailor-made to this kind of situation.
Yes, ma'am. I will pass it along.
Not that the school isn't, probably not that they're not doing their very best, but this is designed to give kids like this, I mean, very, very, one-on-one extra attention. So, I would at least like to look into it. And I'm not gonna, if the home study is approved, I agree. Kids need to stay right where they're at until the end of the school year. Summer's always a better time to try to be moving kids anyway. So if they're gonna go to either relative home, then, that's just gonna wait until after school's out. So that also gives us time to get the grandmother's home study back, compare these things, see what really is a better fit for placement and the children. 4 kiddos this age, it's going to be a handful. And especially with the likely problems that are going to surface the farther we get into this. I think these kids have been the subject of serious neglect. So, okay. I'll see everybody back for our status hearing, May 16th of 2024. That'll be a 9 o'clock docket. And I appreciate everybody's efforts to try to contact the parents and make them present today. But I guess if you don't want to be found, you don't want to be found. I guess if you don't want to know how your 4 children are, then you just go silent.
Right.
Your Honor.
Yes,
there was
ma'am.
one quick thing that I meant to mention. For both the relatives with the home studies pending, I'd like to make sure that the kids have access to visit with them, each of them. I know that there's been a visit with the El Paso family, and I'd like to make sure that they're able to keep that connection with their great-grandmother as that home study's pending.
I have absolutely no problem with that.
Those things are happening.
I figured they probably were.
Yeah, I mean, I think, these kiddos are gonna need everybody that is out there. So.
And
Okay.
Ms. Sessions, I forwarded you that letter that the court just sent on that WIP program.
Thank you so much.
And this is a great grandmother in Oklahoma?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody know how old she is?
I can probably look. Do we have a name?
I mean, I'm just.
I probably have access real quick. Let me see.
Gwen Barbary.
Barbary. All 4 of the kids, when I met with them, identified her as who they wanted to live with. Now, that discussion took place before this other family came out, but they had a very strong preference for great-grandmother. And my hope is one or the other of them will work for placement.
She's
And
76.
Yeah, that's the number that I have. And it's my understanding that the kids through the years have spent summers with Gwen Barbary. A couple of weeks here, a couple of weeks there. That's my understanding.
Okay, well. We'll look at it. I'm just concerned about, what it's gonna be to handle four kiddos this age. And I don't know what, we'll look at the financial picture, we'll look at her health, we'll look at all of it. And it may be that it turns out to be that placement with the relative in El Paso may make a lot more sense, but we could certainly arrange for these children to go for a visit with the great-grandmother, just like they have in the past. I mean, I'm not making that decision today, I understand, but it does concern me. So.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And truth be told, I don't even know if great-grandmother is interested in being long-term placement. I just know that was the name that was given to me by the kids.
Yeah.
And Ms. Sessions, if y'all could send us any address you possibly have for mom, and for dad, if you got a different, we didn't have the Sundown Hotel or motel address. We had the Lake address, I think.
Sure.
Trying to get them served to make sure that we have all addresses available.
Okay, I'll have Michelle do that.
Thank you.
You bet.
Judge, after this hearing, could you put Mr. Trout and myself in a breakout room? I need to visit with him briefly.
Of course you do.
I didn't want to let you down, Judge.
No, thank you. I mean, I would have been so disappointed. All right, so I appreciate everybody, and I'll see you back for the status hearing in this case, and then we'll, as we get closer to the end of school, then we'll, I don't know if we'll have those back by May 16th, but we'll figure out what seems to be the best plan. All right. Thank you all very much. Everybody else is free to go. Mr. Jackson, I'll set you guys up.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Aaron, I'll be calling you in a little bit.
Sure.